Okay, so we're getting ready to start the chapter entitled In the Palace. This is one of the last three chapters of the Odyssey. And I've got a little special present back there for those of you in first hour that did not want me to record the videos at home because you wanted to see the Christmas tree in the back. If you can see it, there's a little Christmas tree behind me, so you can focus on that instead of me and while I'm reading the chapter aloud for you. Hopefully you can see it, little fireplace, some stockings. Okay, so you should be on question number 49 and you should be on the first page of the chapter entitled In the Palace. So the first two questions that you're going to be looking for the answers to are, why is the animal lying in the street significant to Odysseus? Meaning, what is the animal's relationship to Odysseus? Okay. And then what happens to this animal? It's a two-parter, so you might want to put a 1 and a 2. And then number 50, how is Odysseus treated by Antinous and the rest of the suitors in the Great Hall? Okay, picking up on page 52 of the chapter, left-hand column, very top. On the afternoon of the following day, many hours after Telemachus had secretly made his way into the palace and met with Penelope, Odysseus and Eumaeus walked towards the town. Melanthius, a herdsman, saw them coming. He was driving some of Odysseus's cattle to the palace for the suitors. "Where are you taking that beggar, Eumaeus?" he said. "We don't want beggars in the palace." And he kicked Odysseus. "One day soon you will pay for that," said Odysseus. "You should be ashamed," Eumaeus told Melanthius. "If King Odysseus was at the palace, he would make all men welcome." "Your master is dead," said Melanthius. "I only wish his son was dead too." Odysseus and Eumaeus followed the herdsman to the town. In the palace courtyard, Odysseus noticed a dog lying on the ground. It was Argus, his old hunting dog, but the animal was too old to move. Odysseus bent down to stroke his dog, and it lifted its head, recognizing his master's touch. The dog tried to stand up, but it was too much for him. Odysseus walked on with tears in his eyes, and with a last look at its master, the old dog died peacefully. Once inside the great hall, Odysseus saw Telemachus with the suitors. They were pretending to be friendly with the young prince, but Odysseus knew it was all make-believe. At the first opportunity, the suitors would carry out their plan to murder Telemachus. When the suitors saw the beggar, most of them gave him something to eat from their plate. But Antinous gave him nothing. "We have had enough beggars in Ithaca," he said. "Why have you brought us another, Eumaeus?" Odysseus stood close to Antinous. "I was a rich man before my luck changed," he said. "Now I depend on the kindness of men like you." "I don't want to hear your tale of woe," said Antinous. "Go away." And he snatched up a stool and threw it at the beggar. Okay, go ahead and stop there and answer questions 49 and 50. Okay, moving on, taking a look at question 51. What happens when the beggar Iris confronts Odysseus in the Great Hall? And question 52, how has Penelope managed to maintain her youthful appearance? Just a clue here, there's going to be somebody who has helped her to do this, okay? All right, so picking up on page 52, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs from the top of the right-hand column. Odysseus took the blow without moving, although Telemachus almost cried out as he saw the treatment his father was receiving. Then Odysseus sat down, outwardly calm, but burning with anger inside. Suddenly, another beggar came into the great hall. It was Iris, a lazy and very greedy man who preferred to beg rather than work. "Go away," he said when he saw Odysseus. "This is my place to beg." "There is enough for both of us," Odysseus told him. Iris showed Odysseus his fist. "Go now, or you will regret it." Antinous heard him and laughed. "Look," he shouted, "we are about to be entertained with a fight." Odysseus tucked in his tunic at the waist and took off his ragged cloak. There was surprised whispering among the suitors when they saw the muscles on his arms and legs. Iris saw them too, and his appetite for a fight disappeared. Excuse me. He tried to slip away, but was pushed back. Each man put up his fists and began to move around the other, Iris trying to stay out of harm's way. Then Odysseus came closer, and Iris struck out wildly, catching Odysseus on the shoulder. Odysseus struck back with a blow to Iris's chin, and Iris fell to the ground with a thud. The suitors laughed and raised their wine glasses as Odysseus dragged the poor Iris from the hall and into the courtyard. When he returned, the suitors cheered and clapped and gave him wine to drink and food to eat from the table. As all these things happened, Penelope slept. Now she woke, and looking as lovely as a young bride, for Athena had been at work, she came downstairs to the great hall. A silence fell over the room, and there were gasps of admiration at her beauty. Odysseus wanted to run and put his arms around her, but dared not. Okay, go ahead and stop there and answer questions 51 and 52. Okay, moving on. Question 53 reads, what announcement did Penelope make? In 54 reads, what did Penelope, that should say ask, the K got left off. What does Penelope ask the beggar about her husband? What does she want to know? Okay, so picking up on the page where you have Odysseus over Iris after he has defeated him in their fight, because there is no page number. And we are in the left-hand column, and we are 1, 2, 3 paragraphs from the bottom of the left-hand column, starting with my beloved Odysseus. Okay. Penelope said, my beloved Odysseus has not returned and is almost certainly dead. Penelope was looking beautiful, but very sad. And my son is now a man. Therefore, the time has come when I must choose another husband. The suitors became excited as they heard this. Choose the best of us, called Antinous. It is the custom for suitors to bring presents, Penelope reminded them. Then perhaps tomorrow I can decide. So each of the suitors sent a servant to bring some of their treasures for Penelope. The servants returned with jewelry and precious stones and took them to Penelope's room, and the queen followed. The suitors immediately began to celebrate, each imagining they would be the fortunate one to be chosen. Much wine was drunk that night, and there was laughter and singing. Some of the servant girls joined in, and Odysseus watched them angrily. Why do they not think about their unhappy mistress instead of making merry with these wicked men, he thought. When he said this to them, they laughed at him. Go away, you silly old man, they said. Telemachus shouted above the noise, Enough! It's time you all went to your beds. The suitors were surprised at his boldness, but they did as they were told. When Telemachus and Odysseus were alone, they quickly took the swords, shields, spears, and helmets that were hanging on the walls and locked them away. Excuse me. Then Telemachus went to his room, leaving Odysseus with the servant girls who were clearing the tables and making everything tidy. Are you still here, old beggar? They said. Be careful, said Odysseus. You too may be unlucky soon. Later, Penelope entered the room. She had heard the servants' unkind words and ordered them to put a chair on the other side of the large fireplace opposite hers. Now go away, she said. I want to speak with this man. Odysseus waited as Penelope sat down, then settled himself in the chair beside her. How can I help you? He asked. Eumaeus says you may have news of Odysseus, she said. If only you could tell me he was alive and coming home, then I would not have to take another husband. Okay, go ahead and stop there and answer questions 53 and 54. Excuse me, that coffee was hot. Okay, now taking a look at question 55, which is the last question for this chapter. How does the nurse recognize Odysseus even in his disguise? So picking up on page 54, left-hand column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 paragraphs from the top, beginning with, I first met your husband. Okay, go ahead and find your spot. I first met your husband when he was on his way to Troy 20 years ago, said Odysseus. He was a good man. Penelope was cautious, for she had been deceived before. What was he wearing? She asked. A crimson cloak, fastened at the shoulder with a golden brooch, said Odysseus. The brooch was most unusual. Half was shaped like a dog, and the other half was shaped like the deer that the dog was hunting. Tears filled Penelope's eyes. Those are the clothes I gave him, and the brooch was my own favorite. But what else do you know of him? I have heard that he angered Zeus, who set him adrift on the ocean. But they say Odysseus escaped and that he will return home very soon in disguise. I wish I could believe you, stranger, said Penelope with a sigh. I will send your Euryclea to you. She was nurse to Telemachus and was once nurse to Odysseus himself. She will bathe your tired feet before you go to bed. Thank you, said Odysseus, smiling to himself as he remembered the old nurse. Euryclea came with a basin of warm water, and Odysseus tucked up his tunic in readiness. He was about to place his feet in the warm water when Euryclea's hands flew to her face, knocking over the basin, and she gave a gasp. Odysseus realized at once what had happened. His old nurse had seen a scar on his leg, the result of a tussle with a boar when he had been hunting one day as a young man, and she had recognized it. Okay, go ahead and stop there and answer the last question, and then we'll finish reading the chapter. Okay, finishing up. Shh, Odysseus whispered to her. Say nothing to anyone. No one must know I'm here until those suitors are gone. Euryclea's face was filled with joy. I will keep silent, she whispered excitedly. Penelope had heard nothing. She was staring into the fire, her thoughts far away. But then she said, The other night I dreamed that an eagle killed all 20 of my pet geese, then spoke to me with the voice of Odysseus. It said, Do not cry, Penelope, for as the eagle has killed the geese, so will I kill the suitors. The eagle is Zeus's bird. That is a good omen. Penelope sighed. I hope you're right, but I must choose one of the suitors tomorrow. After this, Penelope went to her room, and Odysseus was left alone in the great hall where a bed had been made up for him. But sleep did not come easily. For many hours he lay awake, his mind busy with his plans for the next day. Okay, at this point, go ahead and turn your study guide in so that I can check your questions for In the Palace. And if you have any mistakes, you'll have to fix those before going on to the Great Bow. If they all look good, then you can go on to the Great Bow.